All right, Adam. We'll give a few minutes for some people to join. So, my wife, she was kind of excited to watch the new Love Boat. So I'm like, okay, I'll watch the new Love Boat with you. And we turn it on, and then we discover it's a reality show. We thought it was like a sitcom. So I was like, heck no, I don't want to watch that. So I'm like, why not go live?
I am honored.
Yeah, I'm uploading a video right now. It'll be delayed since I'm on here, but I did a play ball extravaganza, 1939, 1940, 1941. I have a bunch of those years. The 1941 set is one of my favorite sets. Do you have a favorite set or a few?
Well, it seems like that kind of is in flux because I'm relatively new. But if you ask me today, the 54 Red Heart dog food set, I think is really sweet. 53 tops, 54 tops. Um, I don't have too many of them, but some of the Red Man tobacco cards I think are really, really cool. Just a gorgeous vintage art. 60. I only have one card from this set, but 65 tops I think is a really
Yeah.
cool set.
Yeah, when I was little, I remember the first time I started to see 65 and 66 cards. They'll always be special to me. I love the 53 tops. There are so many different sets I love. Love the 33 tattoo orbit set. Love the 33 the long. I don't know, 1933 they made so many great issues along with the Gouty, the Warsh cigars. You ever see one of those?
You know, I probably have seen one on your channel at some point.
Well, I've been wanting to get you on and learn a little bit more about you. You kind of came onto the scene quickly and in a big way. And walking around the National with you, which it was a pleasure to meet you there and to see your purchases. And you have a great eye for picking out cards, regardless of the grade. I was, I have a lot of the cards you bought, or all of the cards you bought at the National, but I was still jealous of yours. They were exceptional. Especially that 61 Ernie Banks. Well, they were all fantastic. So, tell us your story. You got back into collecting, or you just started collecting?
Sure. So I'll keep it brief, which is not my forte, and then you can always ask me to expand if you want. But even at a young age, like grade school, we had a teacher that got us into stamp collecting, which was pretty cool. So I got into stamp collecting, and then I got into coin collecting, and I did collect mostly some basketball cards in the 80s, a little bit of football. I followed the NBA a fair amount. I followed the NFL a fair amount, but I never, like virtually never watched Major League Baseball. Like maybe possibly the last or potentially last game of a World Series. But I just kind of thought that baseball was slow and boring. I don't think that way now, but that's what I thought. And now that I'm older, I guess it's more my speed. And I also like it because I really like the game of chess. And so to me, baseball is, a little bit more like chess with the strategy. And so I was at the point a couple years ago, like middle of 2020, I was still heavy into my coin collecting vintage US coins. And I was doing what I like to call surfing the YouTubes, just kind of checking out different videos and going down that rabbit hole of YouTube videos. And ended up on watching a YouTube video of Talking Ball Cards, John, who does a lot
Yep.
of grading reveals. And he was showing some 56 Tops cards. I don't remember which ones. 56 Tops baseball. And he showed the back with a colorful 3-panel cartoons. And I just had this, incredibly nostalgic feeling, John. And I said, wow, I've got to have one of those. And so knowing nothing, and when I say I knew nothing about baseball, this is not false humility. Like literally, talk about some knowledge gaps. I truly knew nothing. And I mean, if somebody had said, have you heard of a guy named Ken Griffey Jr., I would have said, yeah. But if somebody had said, have you heard of a guy like, say, Ernie Banks, I'd have been like, I don't know who that is. So, I was
Yeah.
pretty clueless. So I knew Hall of Famers were good. So I got online and I looked up the Hall of Famers in the 56 top set. And my goal was to just get one Hall of Famer and spend as little as possible, because I wanted to save my hobby money for, for my coin collecting. And so let's see, I should have this in here. That'd be a 56. It shouldn't take me as long to find it.
You sold a
Because
coin to go to the National. I saw you did a video.
I did. Okay, here we go. I have so little to organize compared to you, and I don't mean that but you'd think I could keep my stuff organized, because I'm starting out, so there's not that much. So I bought this Hoyt
Wait,
Wilhelm,
Wilhelm, yeah, beautiful card.
and it's got these really cool cartoons on the back. I know there's a lot of glare, but so I thought, okay, I'm done. Literally, that is the end of my vintage baseball card collecting. I have completed it. I have a 1956 Topps Hall of Famer, and I thought, I'm going back to exclusively collecting coins. And as of course I had looked through all the Hall of Famers, I just, I wanted to get one Hall of Famer just to narrow it down somehow. And I don't know how long it was, but maybe just a couple days later, and I had this sinking feeling in my gut. It's like, I really want the mantle out of that set. And the reason it was a sinking feeling is because I knew it was not going to be cheap, and I knew it was going to take away from my coin collecting, focus, take those dollars away. And so
That's
I
for
ended
sure.
up, yeah. So I ended up getting the mantle, and here's what's kind of cool about it. I did have some Shaq rookies. I had 3 of his Stadium Club beam teams, and also, some other ones. One of those beam teams, I got lucky and just sold it, right at kind of the peak, and it paid for, the vast majority of the mantles. So I kind of got lucky there. So that
Wow.
was pretty cool. And so I got this gorgeous 56 Topps mantle with the gray back. And
Wow.
and that was kind of the beginning. And then I knew that I was going down the rabbit hole of collecting vintage baseball, and I didn't know, okay, will I continue to pursue the coins? Well, what's been happening over time, I have not bought any new coins in quite some time, and I'm slowly kind of selling coins. I think I still love the coins. I mean, it's not like I don't like them anymore. It's just that the vintage baseball cards are becoming my first love. They're much larger than the coins, frankly, and often they're colorful, and the coins are getting harder and harder to see without magnification the older I get. And in my
I
humble opinion,
understand that.
they don't display as well. I'm not trying to disrespect coin collecting. I have a love for these coins as well, and may end up keeping some. But also the baseball cards are about actual players. So you also have, the history of the player, both on the field and off the field. So just that one YouTube video, thanks to John, he's cost me so much money, has sent me down this rabbit hole, which I'm really stoked about.
Yeah, that's great. That's that's what it's all about. I find it interesting, though, you weren't a baseball fan, so it's safe to say that you actually like the cards more than the game.
Yeah, that's a great question. I really do enjoy sports, and if somebody said, if I had to make a choice, I would not want to make this choice, but if I had to choose between watching sports or collecting cards, I would choose the collecting cards. But I like watching sports, and I enjoy it. I think it's a wonderful, I guess you could call it a hobby or whatever. And I think it's something in this time of, a lot of divisiveness. It's something that can hopefully kind of bring us together. You could be sitting next to somebody at a sporting event, or you could be, watching a game with someone, and they may have very different, opinions than me on all sorts of things, but we could kind of get together and root for the same team or whatever. So I really do enjoy sports, and I've started to watch some baseball. I'm looking forward to watching a fair amount of the Major League Baseball playoffs that are coming up, or at least the recaps. But if I were forced to make a call, of course, I wouldn't want to have to do that. I'd say, well, if I can only do one or the other, I'm thinking I'm going to choose the collecting.
Yeah, well, I actually am the same way. Like I'm more into the cards anymore than the sports. It's I just love cards. Now, you hit about talking about coming together and watching sports. You know what's unique about sports is you can't go to a movie, or you can't go to a Broadway play, you can't go to a rock concert and catch a baseball and sell it the next day for $2 million.
Yeah, somebody had asked me. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know what I'm thinking, John? I'm thinking I think my phone has plenty of juice, but I would feel like an absolute heel if I ran out before our live stream ended. So
that's okay. We'll do it another time. I'm
good now, but
you hit on a lot of different things when you were talking, and my brain is running. One of them was, as you said, like baseball was boring to you growing up. And that's a lot of people say that. And it's funny. My dad and my grandfather were golf fanatics, and they were always watching golf. And when I was young, even into my late teens, I didn't get it. I'm like, "Why? This is so boring." But then in my early 20s, I took up golf. And once I played the game, then I couldn't, wait to watch golf. I watched it all the time. I had a friend in high school who was a big hockey player. And he, taught me the nuances of hockey and everything. And I used to go watch all of our high school games and got into that because I had friends on there. And so I think when you have an understanding of the sport, like I grew up playing baseball, and people don't understand sometimes the nuances. It's like, so many fans are huge, huge fanatics about soccer, or what they call football over there. And, that's a slow game. It's not a high scoring game, but you understand the nuances of it. Like I'm kind of old school. I don't want to see 12 to 11 baseball games. I don't want to see 9 to 8 hockey games. You're never going to see a soccer game that's 20 to 19. Yeah, that's not going to be fun, because that's not how the game's meant to be played. Now, one of my problems with modern sports is they keep changing things and changing the rules and doing this and that to make scoring, to do away with defense and to make scoring the thing. And this year in the NFL, they actually added a game. And they've done that over the years. They've changed the rules so dramatically. So adding a game, what does that do? As a purist, as somebody who's into the history of sports, man, every record's going to get broken, because now it's a 17-game season. It was a 16 game. Before that, it was a 14 game season. Before that, it was a 12 game season. Then you go back to the days, and everybody makes fun of me for always bringing up Don Hudson, but you go back to when he played, and there were 9 and 10 and 11 game seasons. So, when it comes to records and that kind of thing, the old players don't have a prayer. They don't have a prayer. If you look at the leading quarterbacks of all time, they're all modern. Leading receivers of all time, they're all modern. And it'll just continue to be that way until no old football record will ever be held. No old player will ever hold one. So you are into chess. Are you good?
I'm very good, actually, which is true.
What's your rating?
I don't know. I don't know what my rating is, but I know that when I've played in chess clubs, I'm very good. It sounds arrogant to say this, but in life, a person can only be good at so many things. This is one of the things that I am very good at.
Well, that's interesting. You don't know this about me, but I used to be a big chess fan and a big chess player. And I grew up and I knew how the pieces moved, right? But I didn't know how to play chess. And so I'd get together with my friends. I had one friend, he would bring the queen out and beat me, just basically with her. And I had another friend, and we would split games. And then I had another friend, and I couldn't beat him for anything. So I'm like, screw this. I'm very competitive. And so I went out, I started buying chess books. I bought an electronic game, and I started studying. I hired a 4-time Pennsylvania Grandmaster champion to train me.
Oh,
So I started
wow.
calling my friends over one at a time once I knew what I was doing. So the one guy who I couldn't beat, I beat him 11 games in a row, and he got real mad and left. The other guy that used to bring his queen out, I said, if you bring that queen out, I'm shoving her up your ass. And he brought her out. I had her in 5 moves. And my other friend, who we would split, I would spot him my rook and play him. So I was going to the local chess club. And after like 4 months, I was beating those guys. Did I lose you? I think Adam got tired of listening to me.
Oh no, I'm back. I'm back.
Oh, your camera cut out for a second. Yeah, I'm a huge chess fan. I have a giant chess library, including a very rare book of the Fischer-Spassky match in '72.
Oh wow.
That I looked everywhere for this book for so long, and I finally found a copy. It's a little paperback, and it is next to impossible to find.
Yeah, that match, poor Spassky, if I recall right, I think there were some serious negative consequences, unfortunately, because Russia had expected him to win, and it did not play out that way. I can't remember.
Well,
yeah.
That match. See, people don't realize, if you didn't live then, they said that more people in the world knew Bobby Fischer's name after that match than any other person in the world. Like, that's how popular he was. And people don't realize that was like the 1980 hockey game in the Olympics when the United States beat Russia. Because, as you're aware, all the great chess players come out of Russia. There was, one or two American Grandmaster champions over the years. Morphy, I think, and there's actually a lot of comparison to him and Bobby Fischer. But when Bobby Fischer took down the Russian chess champion, it was such a huge, monumental moment, because it was during the Cold War, and they decided to, go at it that way rather than bombs. And the amazing part is, Bobby Fischer was real quirky, and things bothered him. And he was complaining in the first game about the shutter of the camera, and he was all distraught. And he kept asking him to get up and go ask him to move the camera. But part of the gig was that it was going to be filmed, right? And so they refused to move the camera. And I guess I was listening to a documentary where they said that he suffered from something where he had hypersensitivity to sound. And he was trying to play, and he could hear this camera, old-fashioned camera. So he lost the first game. He made like a stupid move and lost the first game. So the second game, they refused to do it. So he didn't even show up. He forfeited. So he was down 2-0 against the greatest player in the world, and came back and beat him handily. And game 6 in that match is regarded as game 6. Bobby Fischer played such a beautiful game that the crowd clapped and applauded for him, and Spassky applauded for him. That's how beautiful of a game that was.
Wow.
But we're here to talk cards.
Well, let me just say, I'm always amazed at your knowledge. And also, it was kind of sort of Bobby Fischer against the entire Russian chess machine, because, Spassky had all of these other Russian grandmasters, or several of them, that were really helping him strategize and everything else. And it was just, Fischer's brilliance that overcame the entire Russian chess machine. And it really was, a big deal in that Cold War era. So, wow, I'm, as always, amazed at your knowledge, John.
I do have a Bobby Fischer card. I was going to show it because Orlando, Collector's Dream, just showed it some chess cards, and I was messaging with him. I have a Bobby Fischer card from the early 70s. But you know what? You know the irony of this, not to get too deep into the chess, but the irony is that Bobby Fischer's mom was a communist and she was under constant surveillance by the FBI when he was growing up. And they said that he used to sit on the stoop, and when anybody would go up to try to talk to him, he'd say, "I have nothing to say to you." She had trained him not to say anything because the FBI was always coming around.
Wow.
And
I did not
she
know that.
abandoned him. Yeah, she abandoned him. She just moved one day and left him and his sister behind.
Wow. I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. So you have really come a long way with your collecting. I mean, you just started what, a few months ago?
So I started mid 2020. And the thing that's kind of funny is it had nothing, my starting to collect vintage baseball had literally nothing to do with the pandemic or the rises in prices that were already occurring, but then started to occur for vintage as well, but had everything to do with me seeing this video and saying, "That's so cool, I want to get one of these 1956 cards." And then it just kind of grew from there. So timing on my part, know that bad timing, because I'm in this for the long haul now. So whether I started at a peak or near a peak isn't really that important to me. I mean, heck,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to go back a few years and take advantage of some of those lower prices, but I never knew those lower prices. So in a sense,
Yeah.
ignorance
I was
is
going to
bliss.
ask you. Yeah, I was going to ask you. So I didn't realize, I thought you were a little newer than that. So you coming in at the peak of that boom, did you realize that was going on, or you didn't notice?
So I knew that there was a sports card boom coming on, but when I came in, it hadn't really hit vintage as much because the vintage boom kind of lagged behind a little bit. And then it wasn't long before I was painfully aware of that boom, because my collector mindset is I would like to stretch my hobby dollars. So if things don't cost as much, I can get more cards for my money, or
Yeah.
get higher, maybe get higher grades, not for investment, but just if it's sharper and crisper or whatever. So yeah, it didn't take too long before I realized, wow, my timing was impeccable.
Right. So what are your do you have any collecting goals? Are there certain cards you're going after?
I'm still learning. Of course, that's going to be a lifelong thing, and I'm 58 years old, so I'm starting somewhat later in life. But I guess I sort of have a philosophy. We'll see how the spirit moves me. I could see myself eventually possibly completing Willie Mays Topps run, or a Hank Aaron Topps run. Maybe possibly the Red Heart 54 Red Heart set, or maybe just all the red cards to start with. Maybe all of the 53 Topps cards that I want. I mean, that's pretty spendy, but these are things that could potentially happen down the road. As far as getting into pre-war, the prices are pretty spendy, and a lot of the cards pre-war are much scarcer, and so it's a more challenging thing to do. And so I have very little pre-war. But really, my approach is just kind of, I don't know if this resonates with others, but it's just kind of, learning and letting the spirit move me. And when a card really calls to me, I try not to buy it immediately, because I don't want to just, run out of money and wish I had bought something else. But I'll try to think about it a little bit, which can be tricky, because if it's something good, it might get, snatched up pretty quickly. But if something really, calls to me, I will go after it. Or I am influenced by other YouTubers. For example, Picker Jim, one of his recent videos ended up, talking about Mike Schmidt, among others. And so I got my very first Mike Schmidt card, his first solo card from 74 Topps. And then this just came in the mail today, this gorgeous Carl Erskine Red
I
Heart.
always loved that card.
And the Drew turned me on to this card. And Erskine, of course, is still with us, 95 years old, and just an individual that has really been an agent for positive change, not to mention, had a solid career. And this is a cool card because I won it at auction for, basically about the price of sending it in for grading. So I realized it wasn't free, but it makes it feel like it was kind of sort of free in a sense,
Yeah. Well, you hit on something that I was going to ask you, and you mentioned. You said that you might get all the red hearts. I was going to ask you, do you have any interest in completing any sets?
Yeah, I do have interest in creating some type of completions, and that could maybe be a player run, and maybe that would be just their main cards, say from Topps. Maybe it would include like multiplayer cards. It could be getting all of the, say, cards that I want from a set. I mean, I would consider that a completion. That might be all of the Hall of Famers I want and all of the stars that are not Hall of Famers that I want. I guess the way my mind works is I tend to have ideas in mind. And if I find that I'm kind of getting closer to that goal, or if I find that, oh, gee, look at this. I have, let's say, a lot of 1954 Topps cards that I like. In fact, I'm pretty close, let's say, or I'm halfway to having, let's say, all of the Hall of Famers. Then I could see myself saying, okay, now I'm going to kind of commit to this more and move in that direction. So I'm just kind of taking it one card at a time, but I see some completions at some point on the horizon. As far as completing an entire set, I haven't even thought, that far. That's almost out of my, it's almost like my thinking doesn't go that far yet. But if I were to complete an entire set, I'm thinking that 54 Red Heart might be a way to go because it's a pretty small set, 33 cards, and they're absolutely gorgeous, and it's got a lot of great players. And yeah,
I mean, I was going to say that's
nice
not a bad one. Yeah, that's not a bad one to go after. It's manageable. I mean, there's a couple of big cards in there, but you got the 56 mantle. The Red Heart's going to be probably, I think it's less expensive than that one these days.
Yeah,
I don't see set collecting as much as I used to.
I think, and some of these cards, of course, I mean, I can afford to get some of these quote unquote bigger cards, but this could be, a long-term project. Like it's not just going to be, any day, any day of the month where I just go out and pick up like a Red Heart mantle. That would be a big purchase that I'd have to kind of think about and do some planning for. So if I were to complete a set like that, that would take a while. It could be some years, who knows? I mean, I would go after the Musial before I went after the mantle, just because that Musial is haunting me. I mean, that is just one incredibly gorgeous card. And then Dawn Field of Dreams, I think he showed his off again recently. I'm a little behind on my YouTube videos. I'm trying to catch up, but on watching people's videos. But yeah, just in time for Halloween, that Red Heart Musial is just haunting me.
Yeah,
such a gorgeous card.
Dawn likes Stan Musial a little bit.
Yeah.
He went to the ballpark in Denora where he and Ken Griffey Jr. are from, and he didn't like it because the field, Stan Musial Stadium, the sign was all messed up. He was like on a warpath till that thing got cleaned up. So how did you get into YouTube? What made you want to start making videos?
That's a great question. I mean, they're all great questions, but like I had this experience I've never had before, John, which is like when I don't necessarily watch tons of TV. I don't know a lot about popular culture, but when I've seen different actors on TV, I didn't feel like I needed to somehow like, oh, I've got to meet that person. I didn't feel like we were developing a relationship just because I saw, Sylvester Stallone on TV. But as I watched you and others with your YouTube videos, and I started to kind of I felt like I was starting to get to know people a little bit. Like, once you start knowing maybe the names of their pets, or they have a cat and, like your cat will take over your chair. And I'm like, I feel like I need, and then you start to get to know their personality some. And I'm like, I really want to connect with these people in a deeper way. And so I wasn't interested in making YouTube videos at first, because my thinking was, I want to really connect with people like face to face, not this artificial online stuff. That was my thinking at the time, And
Yeah.
so I took a chance and I sent an email through BenchClear to Mike Moynihan, who has the Golden Age of Cardboard, podcast and YouTube episodes, which I really liked those. They were good for me, especially somebody who was learning and new. And I said, hey, have you ever thought about having a relatively new vintage baseball collector on your program? And if you've ever thought about it, I'm volunteering myself. And I said, but if not, that's cool. Still love your program. Well, he took a chance on me and had me on. And being on that program with him was just, I was on cloud nine, John, because it was like, wow, I feel like I'm, that's kind of my first big connection into this vintage baseball card community. And I was so fired up from that it, it gave me the motivation I needed to start making videos. And I literally knew nothing. In fact, the first video I made the big, people have been ranting about it. I had my phone the wrong way, and I sent a copy of it to Mike. Plus, it had my address on there. I'm like, I don't think I want that. I didn't know what I was doing. And Mike said, turn your phone, landscape or sideways. And so I'm not claiming I know what I'm doing now, but I was so on fire after being on with Mike, because, I felt like I had now a connection into this community. And Mike was like, he gave me his phone number, and it was like, because I had never really had that connection. I mean, I can share things I've collected with maybe a few friends or family, but if they're not big into this, like you and others are, then it's not the same thing, So I really wanted to get into this community, and I just felt like something's really missing. I'm watching these people and their videos, but I really want to connect with them and know them and build some relationships. Not that I'm going to be best friends with every single person, but develop some friendships. Some will be deeper than others. That's natural. And so that was, I got so fired up after being on with Mike that I just started making really cringeworthy videos. Now, some would say I still just make really cringeworthy videos with some really, really bad.
No. The videos are great. It's your jokes that are cringeworthy.
That's fair.
I love your sense of humor. I have my uncles they were all jokesters, and they always told corny jokes and stuff my whole life. So I grew up around that. Now, you said something that I disagree with you 100%. You said that when you watch TV, you didn't want to meet Sylvester Stallone or anybody you saw on TV. Growing up, when I did, I have to be honest, I definitely 100% wanted to meet Farrah Fawcett.
Oh, yeah. Hey, let me share a Farrah Fawcett
I had her
story.
poster on my wall, and I don't know what I would have done with her at that age, but I just knew there was something I liked. I wanted to be around her.
I got to share with you a Farrah Fawcett story. That's the one where she's kneeling over in the bathing suit, I think.
Yeah. Well, she's sitting there kind of like this in the bathing suit. Yeah. I actually have it. I have one here.
Okay. So when I was a kid, I really wanted that poster. And my mom and my stepdad at the time said, no, you can't have it. Well, we went, and I was usually a pretty good kid. I didn't disobey much because I didn't want to, I wasn't somebody who wanted to go against the rules or get in trouble. I wasn't rebellious generally, but I really wanted that poster. So we went to a mall, and I pretended like I was sick and asked if I could go back to the car. And on my way back to the car, I bought that poster and I put it underneath one of the front seats of the car, and got home. And later that night, snuck out, got the poster out of the car. And we were living it was a single wide trailer. And so I had my own bedroom, but it was small, like a small bed just fit in there. The only place I could put it, I thought, well, I'll put it behind my clothes in the closet. There was a built-in closet. And so I put it behind the clothes so I could, part the clothes and see it there. And I thought, well, they'll never find it here. Well, what was I thinking? Of course they're going to find it. And so, yeah, I got in trouble for that one. Although I think my stepdad looking back on it, I don't think he was actually that mad. I think he probably
Yeah.
got a big kick out of it, but
Probably. I have this vivid recollection because I was just, enamored with her poster and her, and I remember this older kid in the neighborhood. He's like, you wouldn't know what to do with her if she was here. And I thought, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to do with a woman or anything. I just wanted to cuddle or something. I don't know. She was so beautiful. But my dad is like, he comes up with all these crazy sayings and stuff. And he used to call her Sarah Spigot. Because in Pennsylvania, a faucet's called a spigot.
That's funny.
Sarah Spigot, yeah. Classic stuff. So, Warren, I agree with you 100%. In fact, I was going to bring this up. And that is that when you're putting a collection together, when you're trying to put a set together, it's all about that chase. And it's almost disappointing when you get that last card for your set because the chase is over. And for a lot of us, especially those of us who like to get the more obscure stuff or the stuff you don't see all the time, it's that chase to try to find one, really. What do you think about the chase? Do you chase anything?
Yeah, well, I think, and let me just say, in other areas, I have completed things. For example, the draped bust set, the capped bust set. There's other things for classic U.S. early half dollars. There's other things I've completed as well, and even in the card realm in the past. So, and I completely understand how, once that's completed, that's awesome. But the chase is really, really exciting. And, I will say that, hey, I am blessed. I don't have to deal with a lot of disappointment in the vintage baseball card space because I've completed virtually nothing. But, I feel
well,
like
it opens up
I'm
a lot easier to find cards when you don't have a whole lot, right?
That's an advantage for sure. And I'm on my, and also having coins that I can, sell. And I had a coin recently sell for, well, I bought, it might be glary in this because it's in the double D frame that I won. This 1953 Topps Willie Mays. And this card,
I wanted that card since the first time I laid eyes on it in a magazine.
and
I think it was a baseball card magazine. Baseball Cards magazine came out in 1981. I think I have the very first edition framed in my room here.
do you, just curious, do you have this card, John, at this time?
Yes.
Or oh, nice.
Yes.
And so this was a card that a few months ago, it was at auction, and I bid on it what I thought would be, like a fair market value for today's market. And I thought, okay, if I win this thing, because this is, more than I usually spend, I'm going to need to sell some coins. And I thought about it first. I'm like, well, which coins would I be willing to sell? And, that would add up to enough to compensate, or enough to mostly compensate. So I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I'm cool with that. And if I don't win, then, fair enough. And I ended up winning, obviously. But I got lucky because one of my coins sold for like a lot more than I anticipated, like about 8 times what I anticipated.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you not to interrupt, but what do you attribute that to?
This card, just like with vintage cards, eye appeal matters with classic US coins, but I would even argue that eye appeal almost matters more with the coins, because this was an 1810 half dollar. You can have an 1810 half dollar that's, pretty much just black, or you can have one that has some nice coining, nice toning, excuse me, and doesn't have, any surface marks that are like, that basically detract from the eye appeal. So this coin did have a very nice eye appeal, because I generally speaking, I mean, sometimes I will buy items that have average eye appeal, but as you've noticed, generally speaking, I buy items that have high eye appeal. And so I think it was the high eye appeal. I could see it, bringing a premium, but I think it ultimately boiled down to, there were 2 collectors working on that set. They really wanted that specific example, and money was not their primary, factor. And so they bid each other up. And since then, the winner bought something else for me. So he didn't leave feedback, but it's been a while. I think he's pretty happy. And so that was really cool because that one coin alone, paid for 2/3 or more of this beauty. So I've really been blessed to have these coins that, if I want, I can dip into. And as you would mentioned earlier, I sold a big coin in order to go to the National and have a fair amount of spending money at the National. So that's really been a blessing.
Yep.
But getting back to the chase, yeah, I think that the chase. I mean, I like having the items, and it's also kind of cool if you've had something for a long time. And I have, not with vintage baseball, but with other collectibles, I've had them for a long time. Later on, you can kind of pull them out again and go, wow, I almost forgot about this. This is just so
Yep.
awesome. But yeah, the chase is really where it's at. But you know what? I think even after I reach some completions, like let's say I happen to complete, for example, some years down the road, a Red Heart set, I really don't see myself selling it or getting tired of it. I mean, I'd be off to another chase, but the cards are so beautiful. I would, I'm virtually certain I would just hang on to them and enjoy them because that's why I collected them in the first place.
Yeah, that 53 Maze is just one of my all-time favorite cards. And I went after that long before I went after a 52 Maze, because I have always gone after the cards I like. I don't care if they're a rookie card. I don't care, necessarily what the value is. I would always go for the cards I liked first. And then, as time went on, now I have a lot of cards. I have probably over 100,000, and I have near sets from, man, going way back. So I don't have that much to chase, and I kind of stopped set collecting because I mean these cards I was talking about with Rick when we went live. You have to pay so much for these cards, like a player that played 1 or 2 games, because it's a high number. And to pay a lot of money to complete that set when you could buy like a super card instead. For me, I just kind of stopped. I used to be, chase all the sets and work on all these different sets a little at a time. And there are some that I still work on. And there are some I like to get the cards from the set, but I don't necessarily have to complete it. But that 53 Maze, man, I just love that card. Just love it.
And it's
So,
one of the few
go
cards
ahead.
in this one of the few cards in the set, correct me if I'm wrong, that's an action picture, and it's showing him
Yes.
with his basket catch, which is something he
Yeah.
was known for. I think that's such a cool card,
It's
which is why
very
I went after
unusual
it.
for that issue. Most of them are portraits, there's who is it? Art Schulte, who's holding a bat. That's another unusual one. But yes, you're right. It's a unique pose, and when you're looking at them all together, it really stands out. The 66 top set, I don't know if you ever noticed, but if you spread those out, the way the colors are and everything, it kind of reminds you a little bit of a big box of candies, different colored candies. I don't know if you ever noticed, but when you lay them all out together, it gives you a totally different perspective as when you're just looking at one.
Well,
It's kind of unique.
that's interesting. So far, I have 0 1966 tops, but you know what? I'm not too worried about it because early on I was really anxious in the sense of wanting something to happen quickly to make connections and start to meet people and get to know them. But I have never really been too anxious about the collecting, because I know it'll happen in time. Like I have one 1965 Topps card right now, but if I'm blessed to live long enough, I'll probably have several at some point, and I'll probably have several 1966s, even though I don't have any yet. So I'm not too worried about that. But I wanted to show, you were the one that had recommended at the National that I pick up a card. Oh, This is the card you were
The
talking
leader's
about.
card. The leader. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Just a beautiful example of the card. You know, I collected 61s when I was young, and they are they weren't too easy to find in top grade. So, uh, you know, they didn't. I don't think they came out of the pack. They were notoriously miscut. That Willie Mays. I mean, it's tough to find centered. But that Ernie Banks is just beautiful example, and your Mays is too, right? You have a 61 Mays.
I have a 65 Maze.
65. You don't have a 61?
I do not have a 60. My only 60.
Oh,
My
that
only
must have been.
six.
I could swear you had a 61 too. That must have been somebody else at the National.
Yeah, I had a 69. Well, hey, the amount you remember is amazing to me. You know, I mean, but I do
Somebody had a
have.
beautiful copy of that Maze. I thought it was you. But
Yeah, it
yeah,
must have been
that's
someone
a
else.
beauty too. That's a beauty too. That's one of the first vintage. You know, I had cards from like 71, 72, 73, but that was the first, you know, 60s card of Willie Mays I think I ever put my eyes on. So that
And
one's always kind of special to me.
you know, and I remember we were on top of the Clear Ridge hotel at the National, and both you and Lou Rock were like, you know, you got to get the leaders card with Clemente Aaron Mays, and you were like, Lou, you know, basically like make this happen now. And Lou takes me over to Jake, Legends Never Die, and I believe he had one, and I said, oh, sorry, Jake, I just want to kind of hold out and get a graded one. You know, I'm going for the graded cards. That's where I'm at right now. But anyway, as you know, I finally picked one up, and so I'm super stoked to
Greatest
have
leader
it.
card ever made. Of course, a close running. People could argue is that 60, the 1962 American League home run leaders card with Maris and Mantle. That's another classic. And there's a 67 that has 4 Hall of Fame pitchers on it with Koufax, Marichal, Gaylord Perry, and of course, I'm drawing a blank on the fourth. Is it Gibson? Drawing a blank, but there's 4 Hall of Fame pitchers. You don't see that too often. It might be Gibson. That's another one you might want to look at. And what's amazing about that card is, of course, Sandy Koufax retired early because of elbow problems, and he's on 67 leaders cards, but he doesn't have a 67 card. And that's what makes the 1967 Venezuela so special too, because it says he's retired on there, but he's just freshly retired. Like most of those guys were from way back, but a 67 for Koufax is, you know, it's the first year he retired. It's kind of like the what is it, the 1952 Burke Ross of DiMaggio. You know, the 51 is his playing day card, but the 52 is not. But who cares? It's like right after he was playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, I will say, well, let me say a couple things. One is, you know, these leaders cards. I have a few of the multiplayer cards, not too many, and I intend to get more. And one of the ones I've had that I've been targeting that I'll probably pick up at some point is one that you recommended as well, which is that 62 tops that has the home run leaders from the American League, Maris and Mantle, Killebrew, and somebody else. And, you know, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, after you got that one, that was the first thing I said to you was now you need the 62
and
home run leaders, right?
I took note. I write these things down. So I'm, you know,
there are just some cards that are just more special than others. You know, they're just are for whatever reason, and especially when it's historic. Like, you know, a lot of people like that 56 Mantle because it was his Triple Crown year. So it may make it a little more special than, you know, an off year where there was nothing particularly special, or he was injured or whatever. You know what I mean? When a player does something special, like the 67 Carl Yastrzemski, you know, when he won the Triple Crown in 67, makes that a little bit more special to some collectors. I'm one of them.
Yeah, that 62 American home run
I
leaders.
agree, Jim. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
From 61, you know, the 62 card about the 61 American home run leaders and the great Mantle Maris chasing Babe Ruth's single season home run record. I know a lot of people are not into the not bobbleheads, the floating heads, but
Yeah.
and I don't have any floating heads cards yet, but I'm, looking to pick up that one at some point. But I think that's a gorgeous card because you have that wood grain border, and some of the cards have a really gorgeous red background, and then you have, the heads on there. I think it's a really, really beautiful card
I'm
myself.
staring at it right now. I have it in one of my cases on the wall. Now, are you familiar with the green tints from 62 Tops?
Yes, in fact, I happen to have a couple of green tints. And this first one, I targeted two of them. One of them, um, there was something funky about the listing. Like, I don't remember what it was, but something that would lead someone to believe that maybe they weren't getting the green tint. But the seller had a great reputation, and it was only like, it was really pretty inexpensive for the card. And so I took a chance, and sure enough, it's the Babe Ruth Hit 60 green tint. And I just
Yep.
love the green tint on the 62. Some people maybe it makes, the colors just make them nauseous. The other one I have two green tints, and to me this is actually a card that I think is really, really special, to me anyway. The green tint, Ruth and Gehrig.
Yeah. Well, I'm
And
surprised you learned about the green tints so soon. A lot of people don't know about those. They're just a little nuance, a little printing difference in the cards.
well, that's where this YouTube community has been so valuable, because I mean, the most important thing, making these connections and friendships and building relationships, but also I'm learning a lot slowly but surely. And
I just want to make a point about that real quick. You gotta keep your eyes open because a lot of them are, PSA didn't recognize, so they're not
mm,
always labeled. They're not always labeled, and you'll see clearly. They're easy to tell apart. Uh, so sometimes you'll find them, and people don't know they're green tints.
but those are the two I looked at, those are the two I targeted. Um, and I personally think they're just gorgeous cards. And I will say that when I first started getting into vintage, after a while, I was kind of bummed out because I thought, gee, I won't be able to get playing days cards, or at least they'll be really expensive for a lot of, the players like Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and so forth. And then after a while, I changed my tune and I realized, well, of course, I'd love to have playing day cards, but you know what? A card like this, it's still a gorgeous vintage card, and it's still, a couple of all-time greats. And you helped me to see that as well as others. One of the early videos I watched was a video you did, I'm not sure how many years ago, that I really appreciated, John, especially since you have such an extensive collection because you've been at it for decades, and you've done all of this research, and we're doing research essentially as a relatively young man or young child, even with the books that you had. And you put out a video, how to get started in vintage, and you highlighted a number of cards or sets that new vintage collectors could go after that would not break the bank, that would be relatively budget friendly. And I really appreciated that. So
Thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, those Babe Ruth special cards. It's like, okay, so they make these cards that are honoring Babe Ruth, long after his playing days. But so what? I love them. I remember seeing them in one of the books you mentioned, my very first book I ever found on baseball cards. And I just read a passage from it on my Maury Wills video. But I saw it in there, and man, I wanted those cards. It's kind of like the 1976 Sporting News cards with Ty Cobb and Pie Traynor and Honus Wagner, Ted Williams, Mickey Cochran. And then in 61, they had the record holder, record breaker cards. There's a Babe Ruth in there. There's a Lou Gehrig. There's a Jack Chesbro. When you're a little kid, I mean, go to try to find those cards, especially before the modern era, like when I grew up. I'm just going to the occasional flea market, right? Or I might see an occasional ad in a magazine. It's not like you can go find anything you want. You couldn't. You couldn't. You had to buy what you could find. It's not like, you type into eBay now, whatever the heck you want comes up. You can find all kind of rare stuff, but not when I was growing up. So those were very, very special to me.
And I don't have any cards in that set, but in that same set, there's the single season hits leader and all time hits leader, the George Sisler Ty Cobb card. I learned about George Sisler from one of your videos because I remember I watched your video and I was like, I didn't even know about this guy. And you said, are you serious? Which is a legit question. I'm like, yeah, John, I'm totally serious. I really, don't have a background with this. So I am learning. And of course, I've learned less about pre-war than I have post-war. So.
Okay. So I have a question here for all your collection. Even though I know most of you mainly collect vintage, is there any particular modern card / player that gives you that same excitement, or vintage mantle as a vintage mantle, Aaron or Mays?
Yeah.
The same excitement. I mean, for me, I don't know if it's the same excitement, but man, I love I've been collecting Ohtani since before he even started playing. I've been collecting Aaron Judge since like the first time I watched him. So there are some modern players, Mike Trout too. When I first got back in 2014, I thought he was the best player in baseball, so I bought all his stuff up. Back then, you couldn't even give it away, to be honest. I mean, it was so cheap. You used to get stacks of Mike Trouts. Nobody cared. But how about you? Do you collect any modern?
So, well, okay. I would say the most modern cards that I have, for the most part, would be some Shaq rookies that I submitted to SGC back when I started getting into the vintage baseball. I submitted to SGC when you could submit for $10 a card. And these are cards I had for many years, and I had picked through dealer's stock. And I was so picky, John, and it had nothing to do with grading. It was just, I had like this pickiness disorder. The cards I had collected up to that point were modern. And so in my mind, I just, I thought I had very, very good close-up eyesight. And, if I saw anything like a little nick on the corner or something, even something you'd probably need a magnifier for, I would like reject it, which, I look at that now and I'm like, that's ridiculous. But that's where I was at. So I collected these Shaq rookies and kept them, for years. And when I eventually submitted them to SGC, a lot of them got 10s because, that just shows how picky I was being, even though it had nothing to do with grade. It was just this pickiness that I had. So some of those I really like. I didn't bring them in the room, unfortunately, but I kept the ones I really, really like. They have some nostalgic appeal to me. Also, now this might be controversial for some of your viewers, but
they're used to it.
The Star Company basketball, because I know there are, people have different feelings about Star Company basketball from 83 to 86. They had an official NBA license when apparently nobody else wanted it, but there were some shenanigans that went on that were obviously, not so good. At one point, I had collected every single, when BGS started grading Star Company basketball, I think that was maybe 2008. I could be off, but whenever it was, over time, and this was not easy for me to do on the budget I had at the time, but I sold some things, yada, yada. Over time, I collected every single Jordan star card in pretty high grades, and it was a really sweet collection. And when I finished it, and I regret this, not just monetarily, but because I liked the cards, when I finished it, I ended up selling it all to a star dealer because I thought, I don't really want to collect these cards and coins, and I wanted the money for a coin pursuit. And
look what those Jordans sell for now.
Oh, I know. However, over the last, when I started back on vintage baseball, I have actually picked up all of the what would be first year Jordan cards from Star, except his number 101 from the 84 set, which is just skyrocketed. But I got the rest of them back, typically in lower grades. And generally, kept them from being comma cards because, I was patient and waited for the right auction or negotiated with a seller that was willing to negotiate. So, I got most of those. I got all of his regular sized star first year cards
Well,
back, except the 101. So that's pretty cool.
that's great. Yeah, when I was growing up, I mean, those were everywhere, and we didn't really consider them. We kind of considered them fake cards. In fact, I didn't even realize they had a license. They back then they would make homemade cards, and the stars just seemed like another one of those at the time. However, I do have several of them, like Dominique Wilkins, and I loved him, and Dr. J was my favorite player. So I got Magic and Bird and those guys. I have a number of star cards now, but I picked them up later on, and just never really chased that Michael Jordan. But that's to my detriment, I guess, because now I'll never have one with the prices they're selling for unless they come back down to earth. They just weren't that good looking of cards to me. Like his Fleer rookie's a good looking card, he's dunking and everything. And a lot of the Fleers, he's just like standing there. I don't know. My Dominique Wilkins is such a great looking card, so much better looking.
And I will throw in that also, since I started down the vintage baseball card collecting, I also have been working on getting the star cards graded typically by BGS, although I have, some Sports Collector Digest. I love their slabs, those black slabs. You don't see them that often. But anyway, I started working on the star basketball of Dr. J, as well as Larry Bird, as well as Kareem. Yeah, I enjoy some mid-'80s star basketball, but I pick it up, the Jordans were more expensive, obviously, but I pick it up when I can get it for a good price. And a lot of times I'm looking at grades that might be 7 or 8, something where the investor hordes are, maybe don't want them because the grade's not high enough and it's an auction or a buy it now where, it's not, I guess people aren't so excited about it. So I'm able to pick it up for a good price. So yeah, I enjoy those, and I'll probably show some of them off on my channel at some point, but I'm in no rush.
Hey, I have to Sexton Knife Works. So sent me $3. I didn't even know you could do such a thing. He said, buy a card on me, man. Thank you. Because all my cards are $3. I actually do find great cards for $3. Man, thank you. I didn't even know you could do that. So a little shameless promotion now. So we have Adam here. His channel is the Vintage Sanctuary. And it is like man, your channel, it's so mellow and relaxing. When you do a video, I equate it to like baseball card, almost like a massage spa, where you just go in and you have almost like, that atmosphere where you have the new age music and it's very peaceful and relaxing. So if you haven't checked Adam's channel out, Vintage Sanctuary, do so. Also, right before I came on here, I was uploading a play ball extravaganza. I have a number of cards from the 39, 40, and 41 play ball sets. Some great stuff. And I did a video showing them all. So it's a little longer than my normal. I don't know. It could be uploaded by now, but I hit upload shortly before we went live. So I don't know. Anyway, that's going to be uploaded there. Adam, I want to thank you for jumping on. I asked you at the last minute because I've been wanting to get you on. We've been going a little over an hour, so I'm going to wrap it up. I have a busy work day tomorrow too. And I know you're over on other coast, so it's still early your time.
John, I am so honored.
You're in Oregon, right?
Yes. I am so honored. In your honor, may I show one more card that I have not showed on YouTube?
Absolutely.
This is my
I always
oldest...
have time for cards.
This is my oldest card. And, I've worked on the what I call Yankee contributors. I try to get one card of, various Yankees, whether they're Hall of Fame or not, that that seem to be major contributors, either by, you know, playing really well in the World Series or whatever. And so here we go. My oldest card. I'm going to say this is in a gem mint too. Let me see if I can get it on there. It is the 1922 American Caramel, Bob Musil.
Oh, I thought it looked familiar. Okay, I see it now. I didn't see the bottom, so yeah. Those
Oh,
cards
sorry
are
about that.
fantastic. Those cards are fantastic.
So
Just
this is
fantastic. I love that ornate border around them and everything. I got a whole bunch, and I got them. And then I'll let you talk again. But I got them. You know, when I was young, I started getting them, and back then they weren't very popular. You know, aside from the Babe Ruth or something, and you could get them. Like I got a Rogers Hornsby, and I couldn't even believe I could own that card. You know, at the time.
Yeah, so I thought you would be, you know, proud of me. And this was a card where there was a set break at one point. I'd have to look at my records to see when I picked this up. I believe it was sometime last year. There was a set break. I'm not sure if it was the whole set or part of the set. And they were buy it now prices. And this one was, I'm pretty sure, just priced too low. I don't know if the seller priced it at the price of his brother or what, but I snapped it up and I thought, I wonder if he's going to send it. But sure enough, he sent it, and I've been stoked to have it.
I have to tell you, I spotted in one of my old books, the second baseball card book I ever bought features the Babe Ruth. I don't know, can't remember if it's that or, you know, they have the strip cards too. They look identical. There's like three different sets that look exactly like that, aside from the backs. And they have the Babe Ruth in there, and from the, you know, he's holding the baseball, and it's just a dream card of mine. I mean, it's gotten so pricey now, and you know, it's always been hard to find in the earlier days, and it's been pricey, so it's not a card that I obtained. But I did get another card with that exact same image of Babe Ruth, just because, you know, growing up, that was one of my dream cards, and I hope to have one someday. But Adam, I want to thank you. Thank you for coming on. I'll tell you, there's a lot of things that have gone on in this hobby over the last couple of years, and the YouTube card community is the one bright spot in the collecting world, and it remains. You know, we were here before the boom. The boom may be crashing. Who knows? It's certainly come back down to earth. But guess what? We're still doing the same thing we were doing before the boom. Like we are going to be here no matter what. I see all these. I've noticed so much fewer investment channels now. You know, you're just not seeing them like you were. They used to blow up my feed, and you don't see a whole lot of them now. And this community here, man, it's so fabulous, and it's all about the collecting. So, welcome to the community. You're a great part of it, and we all appreciate that.
Thank you so much, John. I'm honored to know you and be a part of this community.
It was fun hanging out at the National and helping you look for some cards. All right, everyone. I want to thank you for watching. Until next time.